Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I've got a sneak peek for you of an upcoming Tier 8 Premium French light tank. It is the ELC Even 90. This is currently only available on the Chinese server, but I registered an account there and purchased this vehicle to just have a go with it to see if it's something that maybe we can look forward to on the European or the North American server. But I would like to stress that World of Tanks is not actually run by Wargaming on the Chinese server. It is run by a company I believe called Kongzong. Nevertheless, I've got some gameplay of it today for you so you can know what to expect if it does arrive outside of China. But firstly, let's run down the statistics of this vehicle so we can see how it stacks up to the competition. So if you thought I was kidding, you know I wasn't. World of Tanks on the Chinese server looks a lot different than we have on the EU, NA or Russian server. If it's in the game client and you've got money, then Kongzong have no problem in relieving you of your hard-earned cash. Maybe you want an M60, a Clan Wars reward tank, a golden Type 59 that makes double crew training and credits, an Object 907, an Object 268 which isn't even in the game yet on the European or American server. If you've got money, then it's absolutely no problem, but I would just like to clarify that the video that you're going to be watching on the ELC Even 90 is from the Chinese server, and there's absolutely no guarantee that it will see the light of day outside of it. And that's why I'll be labeling this video and also any subsequent videos I do on the Chinese server as made in China. So let's see how the ELC Even 90 stacks up to the standard Batchatillon 12T, the American Tier 8 Premium Light Tank, the T92, and the German M4190 Black Dog. So right off the bat, we see that this vehicle has atrocious DPM. Absolutely abysmal DPM for a Tier 8 vehicle, 1,131. That's 400 worse than the Batchatillon 12T, which has terrible DPM with its own right, and the T92 and the Black Dog, well, it's okay for a Tier 8 tank, but it's not exactly exceptional. You would take minutes to kill a mouse with the ELC Even 90, and that's if you can penetrate it, because this vehicle has 175 millimeters of base penetration, and even if you dab that 2 key, it only goes up to 215. So that's a lot like the penetration on the T92. In fact, it's pretty much identical, but it pales in comparison compared to that on the Black Dog, which has 182 on its standard rounds and 250 on its premium rounds. Nevertheless, the ELC Even 90 with its 90mm caliber gun is just a touch better than the Batchatillon 12T with regards to penetration, but that's unsurprising considering that vehicle has a 75mm autoloader. So just how good is this 90mm autoloader? It better be absolutely incredible with regards to its alpha damage. Well, it's not bad. 220 with 3 rounds in the magazine with 2.5 seconds delay on the shots. Ouch, that means that it's going to take you 5 seconds of continuous fire to do 660 damage to your opponents. And that's really not great considering that the Black Dog could pretty much fire twice within that time and do 480, and then it wouldn't have a 30-second reload. This is absolutely disgusting on this vehicle and why it's got such horrible DPM. 30-second reload to deal 660 damage within 5 seconds of the first shot. Oh, it's absolutely awful. So moving on, maybe the gun handling is the secret of the ELC Even 90. Well, that's not the case either. It's got god-awful aim time of 2.9 seconds and by far the worst dispersion values here, over double the T92. Look at the turret traverse dispersion, 3 times the T92. But the vehicle does have one thing going for it with regards to its gun handling, and that is gun depression. 9 degrees feels excellent. It's not quite as good as the T92, but when we think about autoloaders like the Batchatillon 12T and even the AMX 1390, they have 6 degrees of gun depression. It's not until you get to the Tier 10 that you get 8 degrees. So to have 9 degrees of gun depression and an autoloader makes the ELC Even 90 feel really good on ridgelines. Next up, mobility, and it's a great top speed limit for the ELC Even 90, 70 kilometers an hour, way better than the T92 and just a touch better than the Batchatillon 12T. Its reverse speed, not quite so good, which is a little bit disappointing for a light tank, but oh dear. Its horsepower is 160. This must be a very, very, very light tank. And yes, it is, because it weighs under 7 tons, which makes the ELC Even 90 one of the lightest high-tiered vehicles in the game. But what's surprising is that even though it has this very low weight of under 7 tons, its power to weight is not exactly exceptional for a light tank. It's 23.88. So, okay, that's a little bit better than the Black Dog, however, but unfortunately its ground resistances are just a little bit worse, which kind of gives this vehicle Black Dog mobility. But unfortunately, the vehicle's tank traverse is 45 degrees a second, which means that this vehicle doesn't have particularly impressive traverse traverse speeds, and when we combine it with the other aspects within its mobility, it's not exactly the most mobile light tank. Next up, armor, and the vehicle pretty much has none, 15mm at its thickest, which means every single tank that this meets that fires armor-piercing rounds at it is going to overmatch it, and if you fire high explosive rounds at it, you're pretty much going to dominate it. And if this wasn't bad news enough, the vehicle has an abysmal 900 hit points, making it a 50-50 whether this thing will be one-shot by a KV to a vehicle 2 tiers lower than it. And to round it all off, this vehicle has worst-in-class view range of 380 meters. Not very good for a high-tier light tank, and oh my goodness, when we look at the statistics of this tank, is there anything that it can do well? Well, there are actually a couple of things. Firstly, the camo rating of this vehicle. Look at this. I don't even have a full concealment crew. My commander isn't past 50%, and my gunner isn't past 74%. And it is packing 41.13% camo. I wouldn't be surprised if this goes up to about the 45% mark, which is absolutely incredible and trumps both the T92 light tank and also the T100 LT, which are the highest camo rating top tier tanks in the game. But of course, when your view range doesn't really go above 445 meters, even when you're using coated optics, vents, and you've got some fairly decent crew skills, this vehicle isn't going to be getting that hyper view range that you need to be able to spot at those long distances. And for anyone who's interested, this vehicle has a 3-person crew, a commander, a gunner, and a driver, which actually makes it a pretty good crew trainer if you like your high-tier French light tanks, such as the AMX 13105. But anyway, I think that's quite enough theory crafting. Let's see how it performs on the battlefield. So here we go, rolling out on the Chinese server, the first one that I am playing on my YouTube channel. I am the QuickyBaby, because somebody who plays on the Chinese server already took my name. Thanks for that. Thanks, Chinese QuickyBaby. Now, one thing you might have noticed as well is that the crew voices are Chinese by default. That makes perfect sense when you think about it. If you play on either the European or the North American server and you have default crew voices, non-national, then everything is going to be the American crew voices. If you play on the Russian server, it's Russian crew voices by default, irrelevant of what tank you're playing. And if you play on the Chinese server, unsurprisingly, it is going to be the Chinese crew voices. So as we can see, the ELC Even 90, while it's not the fastest of light tanks, it's by no means absolutely slow. We reverse, we do a 180 to get into position, and we spend forever aiming with this awful 2.9 seconds aim time to finally try and put a round at my opposite number in the form of the Bat Chatillon 12T, but unfortunately, we didn't quite see where the shell goes in. We'll have to check in the post-game stats, but I'll probably forget. You'll have to look yourselves. I always forget about that kind of stuff. I'm always on to the next bit of commentary, right? Nevertheless, not the best view range on this tank, but as I mentioned, probably the best camo on any high-tier vehicle, so that's great up until you fire, right? Oh man, not the best shot there. I'm having to deal with 200 ping, as you can see in the top left-hand corner. Now, 200 ping is by no means terrible, and towards the end of the evening when I was playing on the Chinese server, I was kind of getting used to it. Because obviously the higher ping you have, the more lead you have to give against your opponents. And so as long as your ping is stable, a stable 200, is better than having a ping that fluctuates between, say, 10 and 200, because then you don't quite know how much lead you have to be giving. Nevertheless, I guess I'm just filling time here because look how long the reload is on this tank. Absolutely abysmal. And when you miss your shells like I did, or at least we don't know if I missed our first shell, it's just absolutely horrific. Luckily for us, this T10 decides to just sit in front of us. Why is he not shooting the Type 59? He misses me, thank goodness. I'm thinking about putting a round into his tracks, but I think, well, he's tracked anyway, so why not just shoot him in the lower plate, right? And there you go. Woohoo! 660 damage within 5 seconds. I mean, look, I'm not going to knock it. It's not bad. It would be okay if I was a tier 6 tank or a tier 7 tank. But as soon as you start to go up towards tier 8 and you're doing 660 in a magazine, oh, that's really not very good, is it? Even the Bat Chatillon 12T is going to be doing slightly more than this vehicle. In fact, what is it that the Bat Chatillon 12T actually has for an autoload? I have to admit, I'm not really a super expert when it comes to that vehicle. I didn't really enjoy playing it that much, even during the Tech Tree showcases. Okay, so it does 170 times by 4, that's 440 plus 280. Oh, it does 680. Oh, so I see why Wargaming have decided to give this 90mm 220 alpha damage, because they want to have it pretty much the same magazine potential as the Bat Chatillon 12T. The Bat Chatillon 12T, 2.3 seconds between its shots. I just guess it's the damage per minute difference, right? The Bat Chatillon 12T has a bigger magazine and it reloads it within 20 seconds, whereas this vehicle has a slightly smaller magazine and it takes 30 seconds to be able to reload it. Nevertheless, if you do get into a situation like this where you get to shoot up into the lower plate, of heavy tanks, it's still not exactly horrible. But how often do you get that when you're playing your autoloaders? The perfect opportunity to just go completely ham on a heavy tank that's just sitting there and missing you or not aiming at you, and you get to shoot up into his lower plate 2 times within the first few minutes of the game. Well, I can tell you, considering I had to play this tank for about 3 to 4 hours, and I had a handful of, should we say, worthy games for YouTube, and this was towards the top end, so please do take that into account when you're watching this gameplay. Oh, well, QB's not doing that bad. He's got 1,200 damage in the bank within the first 4 minutes of the game. Yeah, this was one of the better ones that we had. First shell miss, second shell hit, and look how long. We just can't use the delay between the shots. The 2.5 seconds might as well be completely irrelevant at mid to long ranges, because you're aiming for that 2.9 seconds. And because the dispersion values on the turret are just so unbelievably horrific at 0.16, if the target is not stationary and it moves just a little bit, your reticle blooms massively between those micro adjustments that you need to make to be able to give lead at a moving target. And so it compounds that horrible 2.5 seconds aim time to be, 2.9 seconds aim time to becoming absolutely almost unusable. Nevertheless, we get forwards. Hopefully now we can put ourselves into a good position. We've got excellent camo on this tank. Our view range 380, well, it's not great, it's not exactly abysmal like a lot of the other attributes of this vehicle, and so you can still spot your opponents and try and do some good vision there, as we managed to get against the Type 59. Now we're going to go towards the TVP VTU. Unfortunately, he does manage to spot us there, and a Scorpion, and look, that's not a Scorpion G, ladies and gentlemen. I've actually played that tank once before, I believe at Gamescom 2015 or 2016, I think it was. 2016 probably. I played the non-skinned version of the Scorpion. I don't think Wargaming have ever sold that on the European server, but you can actually get it on the Chinese server, so you can put your own camouflage on it. But you know what, I quite like having the Scorpion logos down the side of that vehicle. Anyway, we managed to lock that TVP in place with some vision, and our artillery slam dunks him. And one of the best things about this tank is how low profile it is. Just look how tiny it is as we go past this Type 59. It makes that Type 59 look like a super heavy tank. And we're going to see when we go up alongside a Scorpion in a second as we go around this corner just how tiny this vehicle is. Okay, he's not going to one-shot me if he hits me. 1 into him. 2 into him. God, the delay to do 220 Alpha. Got to get out of his way, otherwise he's going to kill us with a ram. He actually did 39 to us there. That was pretty brutal. But look at this. Look at this. We can actually go alongside him underneath his gun. This is probably one of the only redeeming features of this tank, ladies and gentlemen, is that you control people like this. Oh, it's absolutely brilliant. It's just a shame that we've got 30 seconds reload. Oh, wait. Oh, no, QuickyBaby. Don't do it. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I just got completely outplayed by this Scorpion. I was laughing my butt off at the time a little bit too much, and he ends up making me look really silly. Nevertheless, he goes down. What did we manage to achieve here? 2,800 damage, 2,700 spotting. You know what? That was probably the best game I was able to have in this tank in like 3 to 4 hours of play. Even though, in my opinion, the competition on the Chinese server is a lot weaker than the RU, the EU, or the NA server. And just to put it into perspective, here are all of the games that I played during my first session on the Chinese server. That was the most amount of damage I was able to do, 3,000. And really, I'm averaging more like 1,000 or 1,500. And that's just because the DPM on this tank is abysmal, and even when you do get an opportunity to fully unload, you're only doing 660. And that has to be at short to mid range, because at long range, unless you're shooting at very lightly armored targets that are just sitting completely stationary for you, you're going to be missing a lot of the time with the mediocre accuracy and horrific aim time and dispersion values of the tank. And so here's our result in Arctic region: 2,511 experience, 1,168 base is actually a second class medal in this tank. I guess because it's so rare, and the players who have purchased it are probably playing it a hell of a lot to try and get their money's worth, as it wasn't exactly cheap for a tier 8 light tank. It makes 70,000 credits profit without a premium account. With a premium account, this would have been 104,000, but I hasten to add that this was one of the best games I had in the tank. And all in all, my conclusion of this vehicle is it's the worst tier 8 premium that I have ever played. Absolutely infuriating, has very few enjoyable moments. The best moments you can have in this tank were when you're using its incredible camo rating, or when you pull up alongside some tank and get underneath underneath its gun, but those moments happen so few and far between that you just get absolutely frustrated playing this vehicle, even with the novelty of playing on the Chinese server. But that's okay, because clearly Wargaming is still testing this tank, and it's only Kong Zong who decided to release it, so to say, on the Chinese server. And if I was to personally rebalance this tank to make it competitive and enjoyable, I would do one or all of the following things. Firstly, reduce its magazine reload from 30 seconds to 20 seconds. Next, I would address its turret traverse dispersion. 0.16 is just absolutely horrific and it's very punishing. Either that, or I would reduce the aim time a little bit from 2.9 maybe to 2.5. Next, I would look at either increasing the power to weight a little bit, or alternatively making the ground resistances a little bit better on the tank. But I also understand that this vehicle is so extreme with regards to its camo rating and its size that if Wargaming were to put it in and put it statistically strong, in addition to these two great aspects, then it could be quite a hard one to balance, and I'm not sure whether we're going to be seeing it on the EU or NA server anytime soon, but I would love to be proven wrong. But do you know what was the best thing about playing on the Chinese server? The fact that I got to kill a gold Type 59, ladies and gentlemen. These things are infamous. They literally cost hundreds of dollars to purchase, even on the Chinese server. I think they make double crew training or double experience and double credits as well. You can't get these outside of China, and yeah, it was quite fun to shut one down. Nevertheless, I hope all of you, ladies and gentlemen, enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, or maybe you just found it useful to get a bit of a sneak peek at something that's currently made in China. Maybe it will be distributed to the rest of the world as well. But if you hated the video, give it a thumbs down and let me know in the comments what you think about the ELC Even 90. Do you think that the vehicle actually looks really good and the QuickyBaby just has no idea what he's talking about? Or do you agree with me that its statistics and its gameplay just look absolutely horrific? And what would you do to tune it up to maybe make it a little bit more competitive? And if you're watching this video as it's released on Sunday, it's time for the first World of Tanks Tech Tree Showcase of 2018, live now on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby. And this year I've decided to make the voting more fair and transparent, that I'm going to be using the poll website. I'm going to open up a poll of only tier 10 tanks on Sunday afternoons when I want to do a Tech Tree Showcase, and then you can all combine your votes from Facebook and Twitter and we'll see which one will win. And this week 27 of you have voted for the Jagdpanzer E100, so it looks like I'm going to be playing my way up towards the tier 10 German super heavy tank destroyer. And if you've never been to one of my Tech Tree showcases before, they're basically like miniature tank reviews, starting from tier 1, working my way all the way up to tier 10. So you can see if it's a line that's interesting maybe to grind, or alternatively, if you have the vehicles already, maybe pick up a few tips and tricks along the way. So really looking forward to seeing as many of you as possible right now on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.